أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا سيدتي يا خديجة الكبرى ورحمة الله وبركاته. قال الله العظيم ومحكم كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يتفكرون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Our second salawat in honor of Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
And our third in honor of the lady that we have come to commemorate, As-Sayyida al-Azima al-Mubaraka, Khadijah bint Khuwaylid.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
If you are brief in skimming through the internet, you'll notice right away that Islam has been tarnished. The image of Islam has been tarnished. And we know that there are forces that be that want to keep our religion down, to dehumanize the Muslims, to further reap the rewards of our lands. And now what we call the thamarat of Ibrahim alayhi salam in Al-Hijaz, formerly known as Al-Hijaz, which is called Saudi Arabia. The oil swelled, they say, within the belly of Al-Hijaz through the dua of Ibrahim al-Khalil alayhi salam. And we know that one of the things that they focus on is making us look like that we oppress women. And for other Muslims, perhaps if culture has mixed in with Islam, you find that the Muslims do oppress women. Likewise in the Western world, they also oppress women. We have many groups in the Western world. Feminists came up through the Western world because of oppression of women. So nobody is free from the sin of oppressing the female. At the same time, the difference between us as Muslims and the Western world, which we currently reside in, is that they say this was a habituation of culture, and for us it's inherently within the religion, as in the religion teaches oppression of women, which is a very big difference. Because one, you can say just the errors of man make mistakes, and humans make mistakes. It is different to say that a prophet has come and told you to do this. You see the difference? It's very nuanced. In the verse, it mentions that of his signs that he created from you spouses from amongst yourselves. And he also says that he did this so you can find rest in each other. Furthermore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مُوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. That he put between you, in translations in English, he says love and mercy. In this is a sign of Allah himself, that the relationship between a husband and a wife is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first question you will ask is it appropriate to talk about marriage and love during this occasion? The answer is yes. Al-mawtu haq wa zawaju haq. One of the rights upon us is death. One of the rights upon us is zawaj, is marriage. That the Prophet commanded us to die as Muslimin, and he commanded us to get married. You'll find in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, you'd find in the afternoon they would fight, and in the night they would get married. Some people could have said, Ya Rasulullah, we're in a state of war. you want us to get married. This is how much the Prophet emphasized on marriage. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us the two ingredients for a perfect marriage. He says mawadda and rahmah, as in that Allah creates this between the two. We know what rahmah is. Rahmah as in you have the power to punish, you see the error of a person, you say, it's okay, it's okay, alhamdulillah, doesn't matter. Mawadda is different to love that we understand in English language. We know that in Arabic mawadda, or sorry, rather love is hubb. In kuntum tuhibbun Allah, if you love Allah. Hubb, what's interesting about hubb is that it can be internal and it doesn't have to be said to have it. You can love Allah quietly, in other words. But when he says between a husband and a wife, he says mawadda. Mawadda is externally expressed love. You do things to show that love. You know, when they say that the Prophet says, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. He says, outward love of my family. It's not enough to love Ahlul Bayt in your heart. We go out, we march with your azadari. We show our love, our harara, you know, the burning flame in our heart of love. It's not enough to love them in your homes. So this is the nuanced meaning of this word. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he tells us to seek wisdom even if it takes you to China. So today I want to talk about the idea of expressing love, and then I want to tie this into Sayyidah al-Mubarakah, and I want to show you that she embodied all 5 types of love language, they call it, the 5 love languages. But first, as-salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Sayyidah Khadijah salamullah alayha was in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no doubt. Of the people inside Quraysh, one of the most influential tribes of Arabia, you'd find among them people that were like the other Arabs, polytheists, they worshipped the idols that were scattered around and inside the Kaaba. And then you had people that were still on the path of Ibrahim alayhi salam. They believed in the one God, the Lord of Abraham. And they were waiting, of course, the ba'ath of the Arabic prophet. Sayyidah Khadijah alayhi salam, not only did she love Allah, her love of Rasulullah was love of Allah. She would actually, we know that she was a merchant and a big businesswoman. To the extent she would go to the Kaaba and do tawaf and ask Allah to bless her business. So we have evidence that we know she was a believer in the one God. Now, there is a very interesting person in America. He's named Dr. Gary Chapman, who's got a PhD in philosophy. He's also a pastor and he's a preacher in a church. He wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages. And it's a nice wisdom because when we go through it, I'm just going to talk about briefly what he talks about in this book. And I recommend you kind of do your research, go online and really look this guy up because he's really smart. Because he really disseminates what mawadda is, as in express love, at least in our culture and our context. He said there are 5. And I know a lot of you guys are young, so you're probably going to get married. This is really good for you, really good. I say this from experience. I've probably done none of these things and I've had to learn to do these things, inshallah.
The hard way.
Yeah, the hard way. He says the first one, words of affirmation. These are compliments, saying nice things. Now, keep this in mind, not everybody responds to these. So what Gary is saying is that look at what's your primary, you look at what you like, and then it's on your wife to learn what you like, and then you look at what she likes, when she looks at this stuff, and then you learn it, and then you reciprocate it to each other. So one of them, words of affirmation. So how do you express it? You brag about her, say nice things, mashallah, you see her wear a nice dress, all that stuff, you know. You have to really throw a lot of compliments in. And also, if you like words of affirmation yourself as a man, you like your woman to be a bit of a poet, write your poetry, leave your love notes, you know, if you're into that, say nice words to you, compliment you, you let her know you like words of affirmation. The second is acts of service. That any act that eases the burden of responsibility. You come home, you find that quickly she takes your shoes off for you, she takes off your jacket. Or the other way around, maybe she works as well, and you stayed at home that day just to be a bit lazy, you didn't clean anyway. Acts of service. Quality time is number 3. Spending time together with undivided attention. So you're not sitting on Instagram and then talking to her at the same time, or she's on Facebook talking to you, or you sit and spend proper time alone together. So some people respond to these, they interpret this as love. They feel a sense of love when they have these things. So words of affirmation, acts of service, and quality time spent together. The 4th one is giving gifts. Doesn't mean gifts that are expensive, and I don't advise anyone to avoid people that like gifts and always expect, especially if you get married, she likes expensive things, probably bad for your bank account. But we're talking about little symbols. You might pick a flower, you might get a perfume, something like that. She might give you something in return. The next one is the physical touch, meaning holding hands and hugging and things that are nature. So you find that all these 5 things are ways that we as human beings express love or want them. We outwardly show it. So through words, through acts of service, through time spent together, giving gifts to each other, and physical touch, as in hugging, holding hands, or sometimes you just mean she's pouring your coffee and puts the hand on the shoulder, or you do the same for her. All of us might feel like we gravitate to one or more of these things. So you might say, primarily, I like quality time. I like just to sit with her. I know a lot of men that are the exact opposite. They like to spend less time, right? Some of you, myself personally, I like words of affirmation. I like it when my wife compliments me, to bolster my ego, my low self-esteem, right? Some people like the physical touch. They like to hold hands, things like walk on the beach, etc. So all of us kind of will resonate. We might have one that we have a primary, then there's a secondary one. And if you and your wife match in certain things, love between you is easy. So if she likes acts of service, and you like acts of service, you find yourself helping each other a lot in the house, that builds love. If you don't interpret acts of service as a form of love, it doesn't matter what she does for you practically, you won't feel it. Do you feel me? Do you understand me? So if you find that she's the type that likes words of affirmation and you're a bit of a strong silent type, then she's not going to feel love. You could give her the best car, the best house, the finest clothing, build her own mosque. She's going to say, well, do you like what I'm wearing today? That's what's important. So understanding how they love. And Sayyidah Khadijah sallallahu alayha was a person, if you look at her life and how she treated Rasulullah, she embodied all 5. How much she complimented Rasulullah. How much she said the most pleasing words to Rasulullah. Her acts of service, we're going to get into her life. Just keep these in mind. Acts of service, quality time, giving gifts, the physical touch. She was affectionate to the Prophet. The Prophet recommended affection between spouses and kids. Sayyidah Khadijah sallallahu alayha, dear brothers, understand that she was chosen by Allah for us. She's Mubarak. She's one of the 4 women of paradise, the leaders of the women of paradise. And in her honor, please recite Salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah.
The tribe of Quraysh was the most influential tribe in Arabia. The Quraysh were big and strong in number. They were very wealthy. Generally speaking, their money wasn't from agriculture, wasn't from manufacturing. A lot of the farmers, they grew crops and they sold them in the marketplaces. They built things, or sana'a, you could say in Arabic. Their revenue was rather livestock, so basically they cured meats and milk, and they would dry the meat like under the sun without cooking it, and they would transport these meats all over the Arab world and even parts of Africa. And amongst them were people that still had the connection to the prophethood of Ibrahim alayhi salam. They were people of the belief of the one God, and they maintained the traditions of Ibrahim al-Khalil alayhi salam. And as I mentioned before, Sayyidah Khadijah sallallahu alayha would go to the Kaaba and do tawaf. So we understand that in Islam, when we look at our traditions, even the whole Hajj, look at the Hajj, they're all traditions of Ibrahim. The Sa'i bin Safa and Marwa, the Tawaf, Rajm. You see, all these things are traditions of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Sayyidah Khadijah, if you want to look at the status of this great woman. Now, when we say Fatima, salamullahi alayha, So many things rush into your mind about who she is as a character. Sayyidah Khadijah, she's the grandmother of the Imams, of 11 of the 12 Imams. She was the supporter, the backbone of the Prophet. She was loyal to the Prophet. She was loving, she was a hero of his problems. She was a freer of the slaves. You know, in the movie Al-Risala, they say that Bilal was freed by the first. Actually, no. The person who gave all their money to Islam was Sayyidah Khadijah. She freed Bilal alayhi salam. She actually did that. The fear of the poor and the destitute. Sayyidah Khadijah salamullahi alayha was not just the richest woman in Arabia. She was the richest person in Arabia. She was the honor of the Arabs and the honor of the people inside Quraysh. And she was a very busy woman. She was strong with 1,000 camels. Now, if you look at it today, if you have a company that transfers stock, and you know, like you're in a business and you transfer your merchandise to other parts of Australia, to say you had 100 trucks, you'd be very strong. Make that the equivalent, 1,000 camels, how much a camel can carry. A large camel, an Arabian camel. Now consider that she was a person of a large company, and she had merchandise. And that merchandise would go as far as Abyssinia, which is Ethiopia, goes to Syria, go to Yemen, go to Muslim, like Egypt, to Palestine. She was in charge of all of this. After her father passed away, she inherited his entire kingdom. Not only that, the Prophet was one of the merchants that she would send with these camels. So she would have sent all 1,000 to one place. She divides them up. Any business person knows you have to organize your stock, see how much you need to transfer, what is the demand over there. Is it all competitive for you? Can you make money? She would make deals with other business people, and they would have shared interest in those business ventures. And she ends up sending, of course, one of the smartest merchants that we know, Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Sayyidah Khadijah sallallahu alayha sends her servant named Maysara. Maysara accompanies the Prophet to Syria. Maysara is enamored, blown away by the Prophet. She comes back and she tells her boss, her friend and her boss, this man is miraculous. There isn't a transaction that you see him do, and I'm paraphrasing her of course, that there's something behind this man, the way he treats people, his justice, his fairness. Basically, she's giving her recommendation. Sayyidah Khadijah salamullahi alayha, we have different narrations. One narration says that Sayyidah Khadijah approached the Prophet personally. Another one says that she actually approached her friend Nafisa, who came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. She said, well, my lady Sayyidah Khadijah sends her greetings to you, and that if you wish to propose, it's a good time. Wassalam. The Prophet got the message loud and clear. You see, Sayyidah Khadijah salamullahi alayha, she, after the recommendation of her servant Maysara, kept an eye on the girl. She kept an eye on him. She saw within him that this man was divinely guided. This man is from Allah. She felt it, she knew it. Keep in mind, she had the connection to Allah. So, they say that the mu'min loves the mu'min. The hadith of Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says that no one will love you but a mu'min, no one will hate you but a hypocrite, a munafiq. The mu'min knows iman, they love iman. She looks at Rasulullah, she sees the iman in him. So then the proposal comes, and Abu Talib, who was the backbone of Rasulullah, Abu Talib, the father of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, the posterity of Abu Talib is blessed, and he is blessed. He's mathloom in the sense that we still have other brothers and sisters in Islam that doubt that he was a muwahhid. Some people say he was kafir. Abu Talib was Ibrahimi. He followed the millah of Ibrahim alayhi salam, just like a Sayyidah Khadijah and her father Khuwaylid alayhi salatu wassalam ajma'in. Abu Talib, in the presence of Hamza and Ja'far and all the Hashemites, all the dignitaries were there. They sit with the tribe of Sayyidah Khadijah, And Abu Talib gives the famous sermon, and I'll read, and please pardon me for taking my eyes off you. He says, thanks to Allah that He made us of the bloodline of Ibrahim and the lineage of Ismail, and for giving us a safe shelter in this country and made us leaders of this nation and the blessed land in which we live. Whenever my nephew, referring to his nephew Rasulullah, whenever my nephew is compared to any other member of Quraysh, he comes out on top. None are more equal to him in justice. He is not very wealthy, but money comes and goes, and it's only a little bit extra advantage. And my nephew comes today to seek the hand of your woman, Sayyidah Khadijah, salamullahi alayha. And we have come to marry her to him, inshallah, of course, by her satisfaction and her acceptance. And he says, I will pay the entire dowry myself. Yani, whatever they requested, Abu Talib would pay. This is how much he backed the Prophet. He wanted to get married, and this is, we ask for an uncle like this. We really do. He says, by Allah, he is a great man, unshakable faith, and complete in his wisdom. There was discussion. The uncle of Khadijah alayhi salam refuses. Khadijah steps in and understand when you want to look at a true woman who understands and she knows what she sees and she has understanding of this world and the next world, this is what a woman like this does. She says, uncle, I know best what's in my interest, better than anyone else, and I marry myself to you, O Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And the dowry, I will pay for it for my own money myself. She said that she'll pay the dowry. This is how much she had raghbah for Rasulullah. She saw what was in him. This bold step allowed all of her, the men of her tribe to think, oh, who's this guy? There's something special about this guy. In their marriage, she was quite saddened. You know the ayah, inna shani'aka huwal abtar. Surah Al-Kawthar, it ends with that verse that people used to go to the Prophet's face and say, Ayyuha al-abtar, infertile one, you can't have kids. In Arabic culture, I think much like Afghani culture, Iranian culture, you marry, you have a kid. What's salam? It's over. There's no waiting. Much like that with the Arabs, very much similar. And they would accuse a man if he didn't bring a child very quickly that he's abtar, he's infertile. She was very upset because she gave up her life. You have to understand that the Prophet was a simple merchant. He didn't have the esteem of the society he lived in at the time. He didn't have it. And she had the greatest of status. And Khuwaylid, her father, was a very rich merchant. It's like she's a billionaire and he's just on 35k a year. It's like that. That's how this society, if you looked at it that way, that's how they'd see it. He doesn't have much. He's got good character, but he can't buy a house. For example, he says, Ya Khadijah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told me He will bless us with a daughter named Fatima. Salamullahi alayha. Don't worry. And this is why the verse comes down in honor of Fatima. It says, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, fasalli li rabbika wanhar, inna shani'aka huwal abtar. They are cut off. In reality, the people saying this to you, they are cut off. Because your posterity, your lineage will live forever, and theirs will eventually die. Aflaha man salla ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam never forgot Sayyidah Khadijah. Never forgot her. In fact, he would always say, God did not give me greater than Khadijah. We know after Sayyidah Khadijah alayhi salam, the Prophet married up to 13, he died with 9 wives. And he'd always say, none are better. In fact, one of the wives, it's been narrated in Sunni and Shia books, that one of the wives was jealous, the most jealous, not of the wives that were around who were alive, but of the wife that had passed away, which was referred to Sayyidah Khadijah alayhi salam. This is how much the Prophet expressed his love towards her. Sayyidah Khadijah, if you want to understand her status, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look, none of us can really comment on how Allah selects His awliya. We don't know the criteria He really looked at, where He chose Abu Fadl Abbas to be in Karbala, Allah makes these decisions. What we do know is Allah is the most just, and He's the most wise, and He does not make a wrong decision. He decides on Sayyidah Khadijah salamullahi alayha. He chooses her womb to be the womb that will give us 11 of the 12 Imams, and Sayyidah Fatima salamullahi alayha. In other words, she is a blessed woman, a woman of light. She is the meaning of the ghaib and shahada, that the maxim, that all the khayrat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the A'imma alayhi salatu wasalam, all of it had to come through her. It came from her belly, her womb. And we ask Allah to give our wives ulama, shuhada. We ask Allah for this. We know that if Allah chooses our wife, there's something good about our wife. Or if Allah chooses through us as husbands, there's something good about the wife can say about her husband. And even if she did not give all of her wealth in the way of Islam, as the Prophet says that Islam was built on two things, the sword of Ali and the wealth of the wealth of Sayyidah Khadijah. It was built on these two things. But even if she didn't give those two things, it suffices in her greatness that she gave us Fatima. This is enough. Wallahi, this is enough. Now what happened was that in the assembly of Mina, the opposition of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Quraysh, of course by this time he's announcing his prophethood, they want to go against him. He's causing a stir, he's giving rights to people, he's saying that there's no difference between the slave and the master, except in taqwa, etc. They sanctioned Rasulullah. They said Bani Hashim has to be sanctioned. So there was a tribe of Quraysh and Bani Kanana. And they sat down and they decided that we're going to stop them from marrying into our tribe. We're going to sanction them with their money and their business. Now this sounds very familiar. There are many Muslim nations today, one in particular, are they not suffering the same thing? This is what the Zalimin always do. If they can't take the quality, the goodness from your heart and the love that people have for you, they will attack your money, they will attack your family, your ability to marry and move and be free in this world. Abu Talib alayhi salam, he wanted to take a stance. They said, Ya Abu Talib, this is dangerous for us. We know that these sanctions aren't just financial, they're going to try to probably kill us. They want to kill Rasulullah. So Abu Talib takes him to a place called Sha'ab, which later becomes Sha'ab Abi Talib, and they stayed in that region as a safe haven. They stayed there for 8 years. Mind you, these sanctions were signed by 40 stamps. So 40 leaders agreed to this. I want to take this back. Whenever you look at the history of Islam, and you look at today, we know that saying that, every day is Ashura, every day is Karbala. These methods that they did to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they're very common. They did them back to even Sayyidah Khadijah alayhi salam. They do it to us now. All the people of the wilayah of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Sayyidah Fatima are suffering the sanctions. This is how they treat us. But of course, history has shown, and will show again, that you can't just defeat us that way. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, is with us. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Salamu alayha had to tolerate, like I said, economic sanctions, social disconnection, poverty, pain and struggle. They suffered a lot in Sha'ab Abi Talib. They suffered a lot. They were hurt badly to the extent where the Sayyidah, one narration says that she would eat grass to sustain herself. She gave everything to Rasulullah. She went from the Aziza of the Arab to being ostracized from everyone that she knew for the sake of Islam and Rasulullah. Furthermore, and this is something maybe you don't hear often, when they went to Sha'ab Abi Talib, one of her servant ladies comes to her and sits to her with her in the tent. She says, "Where's your husband? Where's Rasulullah?" She said, "Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi spends a night in one place and the night in another place. He changes where he sleeps every night to avoid assassination." Look at it today, brothers and sisters, that even our leaders, have they not had assassination attempts? I'm not going to liken them. Of course, no one can be likened to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. But it shows you that this is the tradition of the people that work against Islam And the true Islam, the pure Islam, the good Islam, not the Islam that they sell on the media. Her reply when her servant said, "May Allah give you patience." And her husband is being assassinated, she's poor, she's weak, the suffering is getting to her. It eventually led to her death, this suffering, by the way. She says, "For Allah, this is little." You know, after we do Azar and Azadani, usually they say, "Allahumma, Allah accept hadith qalil," this little amount, qalil. This was the words of Sayyidah Khadijah for the assassination attempts of her husband. They say that 2 months before Sayyidah Khadijah sallallahu alayha passed away, so after 8 years in poverty, it got to her. And she started to lose her breaths. Abu Talib alayhi salam, he dies. Abu Talib was the apple of the Prophet's eye. He raised him. Abu Talib would tell people when the Prophet was young, they would say, "Does this boy have a father?" He'd say, "I'm his father." Because the Arabs used to be unkind to the orphans, which is why Allah told us, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. They were mean to the orphans. Abu Talib would say, "I'm his father. What do you want?" He defended him. He was always with him. He believed in him and he died in his way. 2 months later, the one that gives Rasulullah Fatima, she's taking her last breaths. And for that, Rasulullah named that year the year of grief, Am al-Huzn, the year of grief. Some narrations say that they both died in Shahr Ramadan, but it's accepted also within 2 months. They died within 2 months of each other. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi knows that Sayyidah Khadijah is lying down in her deathbed. And all but one of her friends were around. One of her friends was in travel. All of her friends were around. They're crying and they're waiting. Rasulullah enters the room to farewell his Habiba, his Sayyida, his Karima. And ask yourself, you know, in Arabic it says zawaj, it's because they're two of the same. A pair, and two of the same. And you find that the Prophet, how does he go to say goodbye to his own soul, his own nafs? How is it? You know, one thing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, what he said, this is the man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descended upon him the wahy, the revelation that would make him sweat, his ears would ring, his heart would race. This is the same wahy that descends upon mountains, Allah says, would destroy them, would make the mountain humble before Allah. This man that can take the pressure of wahy, of the risala, says, I cannot stand to see her this way. I cannot stand to see this way. It's as if Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi is pacing back and forth, confused, in dilemma. He has to say goodbye to the mother of Fatima. And Fatima, little Fatima, is only 6 or 7 years old, and her mother is dying. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi says, I cannot stand, I cannot bear this. And Khadijah, her last words is, take care of Fatima. And 10 or so years later, they will open the door on the ribs of Fatima. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasul. You know, little Fatima, after her mother passed away, she was so attached to Rasulullah. She'd say, Ya Bata, Aina Ummi Ya Bata. Where is my mother? Father, where is my mother? Rasulullah would hug her and he'd say to her, indeed, he has built her a castle in Jannah, and she has met her eternal abode. He would grab little Fatima and they'd cry. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, after the conquest of Mecca, he goes, He mixes with the people. They say, Ya Rasulullah, shall we build you a house, Ya Rasulullah? Mecca is yours, Ya Rasulullah. He says, build me a tent in Al-Mu'alla. I want to